I'm Jay Kingley, co-founder and CEO of Maven Advisors, your host of Fractionals Unplugged. I'm joined today by Adam Renico of Ecom Growth Advisors. Adam is a fractional digital commerce leader. He works with companies between 10 and 250 million in revenue with existing channels such as Amazon, their own website, marketplaces, distributors, retail partners, and sales reps. He is based in Hudsonville, Michigan. Welcome, Adam.
Glad to be here, Jay. Thank you.
Are you feeling undervalued and stuck in the frustrating cycle of an inconsistent pipeline and income, despite consistently delivering exceptional results for your clients? Maven's proven 97% done-for-you client acquisition system transforms your expertise into a steady income of $300,000 to $500,000 a year, providing lasting financial security and establishing you as the go-to resource for your clients' toughest challenges. Join Jay Kingley, CEO of Maven, and his guests as they share actionable insights on today's episode of the Fractionals Unplugged podcast.
You're at a conference focused on e-commerce, and you meet a CEO of one of these companies. You walk up, you shake hands, you introduce yourself in less than 60 seconds. What would you say to them?
I would introduce myself to the CEO and I would explain to him what we're doing at Ecom Growth Advisors. I would explain that a lot of companies think they have some type of an e-commerce problem when they usually have an ownership problem. Many times, these companies might be selling through Amazon, their own website, distributors, sometimes retail partners, and maybe a few scattered marketplaces here and there. Revenue is usually coming in, but in these B2B and manufacturing settings, rarely is anyone actually accountable for how those channels work together. And that's where we come in, and that's where we work at Ecom Growth Advisors. We help manufacturers, distributors, product brands, and those in that B2B space figure out what's actually holding their growth back, help them align their business around a clear, concrete strategy, and then create a practical path for helping to grow digital net revenue long-term and profitably, instead of just random transactions without any accountability behind them.
Adam, what are the biggest challenges that small to mid-size e-commerce companies have when it comes to growth and profitability?
People usually bring me on, and the challenges I usually encounter are 2 or 3 different major pain points. And when I'm usually brought on and you talk to other companies, they usually aren't struggling because e-commerce just doesn't exist. They're struggling because it's rather fragmented in nature. They have, let's say, their Amazon, their own direct-to-consumer website, different retail and distribution partners. Sometimes agency and internal teams are very much involved in the process, but nobody is really well aligned around how these channels should work together. So those challenges and those pain points I most often see in my conversations are unclear ownership, that very much that real and present channel conflict, and a lack of overall ownability around just good old digital revenue. And one of the things I found that leadership knows e-commerce should be contributing more to their business, but they're not always sure what's holding it back or admittedly what needs to be changed first.
So it seems, Adam, that you're telling us that these companies have multiple discrete channels, but they have not made the leap to omni-channel. Is that a fair understanding of what you're saying?
That's a fair understanding, Jay. Yes.
Excellent. Now, at some point, when these companies first started out, they were full of optimism, confidence, and they built a track record of success. So if I asked the CEO of one of these companies, what changed since then? What would they tell me? Why do they think they are struggling now when they used to be very successful?
Many companies are struggling for a variety of different reasons. Many times there's a lack of clarity of who owns their digital revenue after a few years of trying to make that break into the e-commerce space. They don't really understand very well how e-commerce and digital commerce in general fits into their business. There's a lack of clarity around that. And admittedly, so many times the channels can get fragmentedly added on. They're many times in conflict with one another instead of complementing each other. There's a lack of just definition of how these channels and how these new marketplaces are supposed to interact. And lastly, as new channels are added on, as direction has continued to expand and grow, There's many times just a lack of clarity of what to focus on next. They're chasing multiple ideas in different directions, different great initiatives, but they're not really sure what's going to have the biggest impact and who's going to be responsible for admittedly making that happen.
Well, that's a pretty long list of things that they're already feeling. I call that their own self-diagnosis of what their challenge is. But given the list of things that you're telling us, that CEO is already thinking when he starts to see results change direction, what are they doing about it? I mean, they're not sitting around twiddling their thumbs. They've diagnosed the problem exactly as you stated. So what are the reasonable moves that they make to try to get back their growth and margins?
Many times companies have already made some of those steps to try to get rid of some of those pain points, but they've struggled very much with it. They've tried something. One of the things you certainly see, Jay, is that they'll hire an agency. Sometimes they'll rebuild the website, try to help optimize their Amazon or other marketplace content, maybe even took jumps into other marketplaces. And other times have tried to take that step and do increased advertising, or maybe they even went as far as to bringing someone else on to help occasionally manage e-commerce or digital activities. And those things can absolutely help. But what happens is that I've seen this more times than not. They often don't produce the results leadership really expects because they're focused on one isolated part of the business. A better website won't solve channel conflict. Better advertising won't fix some of the pricing issues. And bringing on a new agency sounds great, but they rarely can create that type of accountability necessary across sales, marketing, and operations. And what I'm more often seeing is that companies are adding more e commerce activity before they've actually defined how digital commerce should operate within the business itself.
So many times, the reason that I've seen that these, if I can call them go-to moves, don't work is that they're focused on trying to address the symptom and they're not understanding the root cause. They're misdiagnosing what the real problem is. It's like playing whack-a-mole. You hit a symptom over here and it pops up over here, and you whack it there and it pops up over here. So you never really make progress despite the whirlwind of activity that you undertake. So let me ask you, what is your diagnosis as to why these e-commerce companies are struggling to grow and improve margins? And this is the insight that you have, that when these CEOs of these e-commerce companies hear it, they say, wow, I never thought about it in that way. That's really insightful. So, Dr. Adam, let's hear your diagnosis.
I have a tendency to think the root cause is usually an ownership gap more than anything else. A lot of leadership teams may initially assume the problem is Amazon performance or website conversions, advertising, the ROI maybe isn't there. Maybe there's some issues they're assuming that has to do with content or agency execution. And admittedly, those things do matter, but they're often symptoms rather than the real issue itself. As we're seeing more and more, the real issue is that e commerce touches almost every part of your business. Sales, marketing, impacts operations and financing. Then they have logistics side and inventory management. And of course, customer service. These all play a role in the whole e-commerce and customer experience. And many times what happens is that everyone owns a piece of that, let's call that e-commerce pie here and there, but no one actually owns everything around that. That lack of ownership is where I found time and time again, things start to break down. Decisions are then made in silos. Priorities have a tendency to compete with one another. And leadership starts seeing activity without getting the results they're looking for. That's why I time and time again say companies don't have usually an e commerce problem. They have more of an e commerce ownership.
So let me just dig in a little bit deeper on this idea of ownership. I mean, it's trivial to say that there is an owner, and that owner would be the CEO, because everything rolls up to the CEO. So I don't think that is what you're talking about. But if I looked at these different channels, and I'm assuming that there's a channel head who owns what goes on in that channel? Who do they roll up to? Who is their direct boss? And why isn't that direct boss the owner of all the channels and what it takes to drive results?
I think what time and time again happens is that there usually is someone who's in charge of, let's say, portions of the business itself when it comes to e-commerce operations, but there's a lack of leadership and clarity on who has to own those different areas and portions. It's very much siloed. There's no one who actually owns the full clear direction. No one's there deciding the digital revenue direction. If everyone owns just a little piece here and there, who's then accountable for it? Secondly, if there's not someone who has a clear role of how the channels operate, let's say on the Amazon side, direct to consumer, we have different retail partnerships, and there has to be someone there to make sure and has clarity around those different channels so that they aren't competing with one another. And third, there is very much that strong strategic element that the business has to align around. So, pricing, inventory, marketing, sales, operations, they need to then be moving consistently in one direction. And that's difficult to do when you have different people who are siloed with their own areas of specialties, as opposed to someone who's clearly responsible strictly for digital commerce revenue. And many times just need more clarity and alignment around the activity that's already exists.
So if you put someone in place whose job it is to run e-commerce revenue, as you just stated, who do they report to?
So that person who would be in charge of e-commerce revenue report to the ownership level, or someone who's VP of marketing or C-level individual. Many times this particular owner would probably call them a VP of e-commerce, and many times they report to, let's say, chief marketing officer. Sometimes it's even the CEO, depending on the size of the organization. Many times that person reports to the upper level of management because they're responsible for so much of the revenue and they're actively trying to grow that side of the business. If you want to be able to grow long term, you have to have clear ownership around that.
Last question before we take a short break. Everybody and their brother is an AI expert today. So what is the role that AI should be playing, if any at all, in solving this problem that you've been?
I think AI is going to be a really valuable tool, but I don't think it's going to be a good replacement for leadership or strategy. I think AI can help companies analyze data faster, improve product content. It's going to be a helpful tool that's growing on the customer service side, and they can certainly help speed up market research and product offerings. But it still needs people behind the scenes asking the right questions and making those right business decisions. If your pricing strategy is unclear or your channels are working against each other, AI isn't going to fix that. I see AI as something that helps leaders make better decisions, but not something that can certainly make the decisions for them.
It is refreshing to hear someone say AI is not the answer to every problem that we have. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll hear Adam's story.
Is your pipeline inconsistent and rarely full? Do you struggle to stand out and communicate your unique value? The lead generation you've done or had others do for you has largely been a waste of time and money. You're stressed out and feeling guilty, worried that you're not living up to your own expectations or supporting those who matter most to you. Maven offers the only 97% done-for-you client acquisition service, trusted by top fractional executives and consultants. Our proven system takes care of your go-to-market strategy, lead generation, and sales, turning your expertise into a full pipeline and a high-converting sales process. With Maven, you'll achieve a predictable income, financial security, and the confidence you'll never have to take a job working for someone else. Contact j.kingley at fractionalmaven.com to discover how Maven can help you build a thriving business working with clients who value your insights and are a joy to work with.
Welcome back. We're talking to Adam Renico, a fractional digital commerce leader. He works with companies between 10 and 250 million in annual revenue. Let's find out a bit more about you. And let me start with what happened in your life, could be personal, could be professional, that most explains why you're doing what you do today.
As I think about it, there are two experiences that have really shaped how I approach my work. The first was years ago. I ended up building out my own e-commerce business. And what I found out was when you're the owner, everything is connected. Marketing, inventory, customer experience, profitability, and operations. There was no one else to hand those problems off to early on. And that taught me the importance of looking at the whole business instead of just one piece of it. And second part is more on that personal side. My wife and I, we've spent the last several years caring for our son who has a very serious medical condition. And that experience, that process that we're very much still in the middle of, has changed my perspective on how I look at life and what really matters. It's had to teach me a lot of patience, resilience, and to not really get distracted by things that don't matter. And I think those life experiences have helped make me someone who enjoys bringing clarity to the complicated, whether that's in business or in life. I like helping people take a that step back to see what's really going on so they can move forward with clarity and confidence.
What's one thing about you that would surprise even those who think they know you well?
I have a few different things that kind of are more surprising in nature. Years ago, I'm a fan of Dance Dance Revolution. It's always been a joy of mine. And it's been a great fun exercise element to incorporate just in mine and my wife some exercising activities. Something I don't talk about very much, but it's something I got introduced to early high school, late middle school, and just kind of caught on. One of those little secret, unique things about me that not many people know about.
Well, that certainly jogs the memory. What's next for you over the coming 12 months?
Over the next coming 12 months, my focus is really trying to grow and build ecom growth advisors and becoming a trusted resource for B2B companies, manufacturers, distributors, and product brands that are trying to grow digital commerce. And a big part of that is getting out and sharing what I've learned. I'm excited about doing more workshops, speaking at different industry events I have already lined up, and then appearing on podcasts like this one. And then lastly, of course, building relationships with people who work closely within these companies. And last, certainly not least, I continue to want to grow that fractional side of the business too. I think that happens naturally when you help people see their challenges a little differently and give them practical ways on how to move forward. In a year from now, more leaderships or teams are making better decisions around digital commerce because I had a conversation with them about something they might have heard. I consider that a pretty strong and successful year.
What's the best way for our audience to reach out and contact you?
So there's a couple different ways that work out very well. You can email me at adam@ecomleadership.com. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can visit our own website and reach out to me directly at ecomleadership.com.
I will put your contact info in the show notes to make it easy for people that are listening and watching to reach out. Adam, I want to thank you for being a guest on our Fractionals Unplugged show. Be sure to subscribe to both our podcast on all the major platforms and our YouTube channel for our videos. Create the market narrative to tell the compelling story of your ideal clients. Position yourself as an executive rather than a vendor. Generate more qualified leads, relevant referrals, stronger pricing, and obtain work that you love to do. You know what your work is worth. Isn't it time the market did too? Until next time.